Toyota Supra versus Nissan Z. So many articles, blogs, Facebook arguments, and of course, YouTube videos. We've seen plenty of stock versus stock amongst journalists, but here's the thing. The Supra GTS cost $23,000 Australian more than the Z. So you'd expect the Supra to be better. And it has better stock tyres. So if it wasn't better, well, that would be rather stupid. Even the lower spec GT cost $11,000 more, but trim-wise in Australia, it's best to compare the GTS Supra with the Z. Now, what about comparing a Z with modifications that brings its price in line with the Supra? Now, journalists won't do that, as they simply just drive press cars from manufacturers. Now, we have seen some sort of tests comparing modified ones, but what about manual versus manual on the exact same tyre combination? We haven't seen that done by any YouTubers. It's time for Motive Video to step up and do it properly. So let's compare Project Supra by UniClutch with our Z Project car and then put them head to head. Now these are manuals, so drag racing them is, well, pretty pointless. As compared to the autos, they are significantly slower and people don't buy manuals to go drag racing. They buy them for the driving experience. First, we'll show you what mods each car has and the total cost, and then compare some key areas before we go head to head on the circuit. Project Supra has minimal but effective modifications. The Race Chip GTS gave an extra 40 horsepower, while the intake and exhaust, well, really they just give better noises. The UniClutch Track helped put down the power and survive track use. The Zestino Grudge 07 RS tyres increase performance, but the spacers and the carbon body kit is really just for looks. Overall, it has $4,500 of performance parts and $4,000 in cosmetic and acoustic modifications. This would bring the car's total price to $113,500 Australian dollars drive away, up from $105,000 Australian dollars stock. Our Nissan Z is more heavily modified. AMS downpipes, custom 3.5-inch exhaust, Nismo intake, turbo smart blow-off valves, EcoTech tune by Croydon Racing Developments, UniClutch Sport, Z1 Motorsports catch can, Z1 diff cover and brace, Shockworks coilovers, GK Tech rear suspension arms, as well as subframe and diff bushers, DBA rotors and performance pads, braided brake lines and upgraded brake fluid. It has the same Zestino Grudge 07 RS tyres, and it has a wheel alignment from DNA Autosport to suit weekend track days. The only cosmetic upgrade is the Work VS XX 20-inch wheels. Total for performance mods is $24,000 and overall is $30,000. This brings the total price to $112,000 drive away versus $82,000 stock. This is all full retail and for comparison purposes. Obviously this will change based on labour rates and what you can get the parts for. So now, instead of there being a $23,000 difference between them, the Z has $24,000 in performance mods to try and even out the score. So let's compare some key criteria. Forget practicality and mod cons and the feature list and how many airbags and all that other stuff in the new car brochure. You're more than capable of going to the manufacturer's website and taking a look at the specs for yourself. Let's compare what matters here at Motive Video. First up, we'll go with looks. Both cars can be made to look better or worse with the right or wrong modifications, but really looks are subjective. Our personal opinion doesn't really matter, so we'll go with a draw. Next, the interior. We think the Supra has a better quality interior finish and feel, but the Z does have a couple of cool features such as the gauges and the digital dash. Some say the Supra feels cramped and the Z feels more open when you sit inside it. I personally think the Supra has a much better driving position than the Z and it's more comfortable for me, but on the flip side, Susie prefers the Z. So how tall you are and body shape can play into it. So really, for the interior, we're going to go with a tie. Next, power to weight ratio. First, stock power. The manual Supra recorded 361 horsepower. The Z recorded 367 horsepower. The Z is rated at 400 horsepower at the engine, while the Supra is rated at 382. There is an 18 horsepower difference on paper, but 6 horsepower difference in real life. We dare say the Supra is underrated on its power figure. Now, with our modifications, the Z put out 430 horsepower. With the race chip, the Supra puts out 400 horsepower. So the Z now has a 30 horsepower advantage, which helps offset the extra 100 kilos or 220 pounds that the Z carries. Coincidentally, the power to weight ratio is now, well, exactly the same. So that has evened that out. We're going to call this one a draw as well. Drivability is also subjective. But for us, this goes to the Supra. We've owned an auto Supra for 2 years and the Z for 18 months, so we know them well. And the Supra is simply just more refined. The dampers are better over bumps and the chassis is more composed. It also has better turning and just feels sharper. The factory Z dampers are, well, junk. The Shockworks coilovers have improved the car dramatically, but the chassis just isn't as good and shows its age as it does carry over from the 370Z. It hasn't got as much composure over bumps and it's not as sharp in the corners. We did take our Z to DNA Autosport before this test to get an alignment to suit weekend track days as opposed to the more street and drag alignment it previously had. So we see this as a win to the Supra, but there are plenty of people who are more than happy with how the Z drives. But once again, drivability can be subjective. Overall, the Supra wins for us on driving position, drivability, and sound. But really, they're all subjective to enthusiasts. So, we're going to have to settle this the old-fashioned way, with a stopwatch. Let's go.
First impressions, yeah, it's good. Like it feels very soft around here, but I think it's more set up for the road rather than the track, which is fair enough. I thought the tyres were probably a little underinflated initially, just it struggled with a bit of turning. And then once you do slow it down enough to get it turned in and put power down, I tried second gear, but then I found third gear was the ideal gear around here, around the corners, because just trying to put the power down. It helped it, but like we still did a 53 within a couple of laps, which I think is reasonable for something like this. So, but we're just going to make a couple of adjustments, go out and do another couple of laps and see how we go.
So first impression of the Supra around the track is, well, it's as good as I remember it was. Obviously driving a manual adds another element of something to do while you're going around the track in this. I never got to take our old one around Luddenham, only around Sydney Motorsport Park and Wakefield. I expected this car to be quicker than what I've been in the Z pretty much on its first flying lap, and that's exactly what happened. So I was a bit late into the session, only got one flyer after an outlap, and that was a 54.7. So that gives you an idea of just how capable a Supra is around this place, is that your first flyer in it, just as a bit of a quick go, is a 54.7 already. So that means my goal should be to put this thing into the 53s, and probably Bozo's goal to put it into the 52s or even to the 51s. So yeah, pretty impressed. These things are just, and it's stock suspension and stock brakes, just better tyres and spacers on it, and it's able to go that quick so easily. Is yeah, gives you an idea of just how good these Supras really are.
Yeah, just went out for the second session. We actually changed the tyre pressures a little bit, so we actually just pumped them up just because we can only get a couple of laps out of the car, and we actually just upped the shocks a little bit, made them a little bit stiffer, but they're on full stiff at the moment. So I think the tyre pressure is probably a little bit out, but we're splitting hairs now, so we're looking for tenths of a second. We didn't go any faster than our first session. I sort of half expected that as well. It's a little bit hotter, but we're still in the 53s. So for a big heavy car on essentially a road street, Zestino 07, it's still reasonably fast, I think, for here at Luddenham. But I haven't jumped in the Supra yet, so and I've never driven a manual Supra. Actually, the first time I've driven a Z as well, so it's all very foreign to me. But super fun, and yeah, let's see what the Supra does.
Well, the smile on my face certainly can't hide the fact of just how good this thing was in my second time out. Like I said, first session I only got one lap, and that was in the 54.7, which I thought was already pretty good. It was already a second quicker than I think I've been in my Z before, previously here at Luddenham. But that session then, 53.1 seconds. Yeah, wow, the Supra impresses massively. And that's the thing, it's letting me do a 53.1, and I'm not useless at driving, that's for sure, but I'm certainly no pro driver or driving instructor, so I'm curious to see what John Boston can do behind the wheel of this thing. I reckon it could end up being the quickest car we've ever bought to Luddenham.
This thing feels like it's on an R compound tyre compared to the Z feels like it's on a road tyre. That's the difference in the cars. Like, it is just so sharp in every possible way. I can't explain it. Like, just, you know, stopping, turning, mid-corner, corner exit, everything. It is such a well-balanced, refined machine. It feels like this has $20,000 worth of mods compared to the Z. So if this has the minor mods that Hawkeye has said, what a car. It is, I can see why everybody raves about it. Unbelievable.
Wow, driving the Z is so different to driving the Supra. It was old school. I felt like I was really driving a 90s JDM car. It was a lot more work. It was like you come back and you're actually exhausted from driving it. I don't think it was dramatically slower probably when I actually look at the timesheets, but like it felt 2 seconds slower than the Supra. So I'm actually pretty curious to see what my lap times were in the Z in comparison to the Supra. So obviously I did a 53.1 in the Supra pretty easily. Let's have a look here at what I did in the Z. So Boz, I did a 53.7. Oh wow, I did a 53.96. So I'm actually only like I'm less than a second between the Supra and the Z, which is probably less than I expected. I actually thought I'd be like a 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds quicker in the Supra. That's how it felt. So I'm surprised this was still within 0.8 of the Supra. If we had brand new tyres on the Z, would it be quicker? I think there'd probably be a couple of tenths in it. I don't think there'd be the 0.8. So there you have it. With me driving, less than a second difference between them. Obviously the Z has more modifications to even out the price between the two cars, but the Supra out of the box is obviously much more competent car. Beyond the lap times, it's the feel that's so different between them. The Z is hard work. It's old school. They do feel very different. They're both, I guess, fun, but just fun in different ways. You'd have to be a better driver to get the most out of this car compared to the Supra, I think. But the Supra is obviously better for someone that's, you know, got less experience and still learning. But overall, I mean, they're both fun. Which one do I pick? I'm going with the Supra. Yeah, I can't help it. The Supra just feels, the Supra does for me, I guess, kind of like what a GT3 RS does, is you feel in touch and in tune with the car. It's so easy to get quick and flowing in that thing and so much fun. The Z still is fun, but a different type of fun. It's more like I'm driving around with my hair on fire in that. So yeah, very different feel of car between these two. Could we get this as quick as the Supra? I think so, with a couple more mods, suspension tweaks, maybe some brand new tyres. We could probably match the Supra, but obviously the Supra, it's got stock suspension and brakes, so it's got a long way to go for development as well. So yeah, overall, very interesting comparison. The Z actually was quicker than I thought it would be overall, to be brutally honest. So yeah, good times. All right, Bozo, before we talk about the cars at all, pick which one's your favourite to drive around here?
Ooh, Supra. Yeah, hands down.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
I said in my little outro why, and I basically said that I felt like with the Z I was driving with my hair on fire, my arms were going everywhere, and it was like it was like messy to go fast.
Yep.
While the Supra was composed, heaps of confidence. I felt like I could do that all day, and the only other car that's ever made me kind of feel that gelled with the car is a GT3 RS. Like it's that good.
Yep.
What's your reasoning?
Oh, look, the Supra, you know, it's just that next level up, isn't it? You know, I've read so many reviews and, you know, seen YouTube things, and people talk about, you know, the Z is probably a more fun driver's car. I probably disagree a little bit, because the Supra can do anything and everything the Z does, but it just does it better.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sharper on turning, which you look for a more modern car, you know, and it's got that mid-corner grip and power down. Like if you get on the throttle too much, it has a bit of a slide, but it just gives you confidence, you know, and it just feels like it's on a better tyre than the Z is, but it's not.
They're on identical size, everything.
But that's just chassis and that's shocks and all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, for it to be like that from the factory, it's just unbelievable.
Well, the crazy thing is this is definitely faster and better than a stock one by a significant amount. By probably about 3 or 4 seconds here, from the Shockworks coilovers, the GK Tech suspension mods, extra 100 horsepower. We've actually gone and improved braking, acceleration and handling in this car. So you can imagine the difference a stock one of these would have had against a Supra. And I keep telling people, don't compare a stock Supra to Z. The Supra annihilates the Z. So this whole comparison was meant to be, if you have a Z that owes you the same amount of money as a Supra, where would they end up? And it looks like the Supra still ends up on top in lap time, driver feel, every metric that we want to put to it, it looks like it still is.
Yeah, it is, without a doubt. Like, and the lap times are one thing. Don't forget, we're comparing it on a circuit that's less than 1.5 k's in length. You know, if we took it to Sydney Motorsport Park, where it's nearly tripled in length, that lap time is going to triple in difference as well.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
There'll be 3 or 4 seconds a lap difference. So, and that's what people need to understand. You know, we're still on a road tyre and all of that sort of stuff. So at least we've done a fair comparison. They're both in the same tyre, but I love it. You know, I love the challenge of it, and it was super exciting. But the Supra, to me, like I said, I can see why everybody raves about it. Even just that gear shift feels nice, steering wheel position, just like it's hard to fault it. And if you modify it, I can see why they just embarrass a lot of supercars, you know, 3-4 times the price.
Hey, well, it embarrassed a few other cars here today, didn't it? So,
It certainly did.
Yeah, look, I agree, man. Like, I think no matter what we do with the Z, and we can probably do a little bit more development work on this car and probably almost catch that one. But the fact that you need to do that much work to catch one with standard suspension and brakes says it all, right?
Yeah, that's right. And look, I've got to say though, like the Z, it's not a bad car.
No,
like,
it's not. It's just in this company,
that's right?
right?
And I look at what they're worth nowadays in the second-hand market and stuff. Like they're getting quite affordable, but you know, if you want to spend that extra 10-20% more, you can jump into something like that, and it's not a huge amount of dollars.
Yeah.
And you know, they're both super fast, but it was good for me not having driven either of them. Jump in the Z, I thought, wow, that's great, and then to jump into the Supra, I was just like, wow, now I know what it's about.
And meanwhile, I've owned both, so I've had heaps of experience
Spoiled.
in manual, auto, and this car for over a year now. So, yeah, you know what? I keep telling everybody the problem with the Z is it lives in that car's shadow.
Yes.
If you just came here to drive that, you would have had a great time and said it's a great car. But the problem always is you got to go from that up to that, while I had to kind of go backwards and go, oh wow, like you could really feel the difference driving the Supra first.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, great car. Just when it's around a Supra, it's a little bit tough to win, isn't it? But almost like you said, the Supra just flogs so many cars and embarrasses. It's so many more expensive cars. It's that good. So it's more of a case of it's a good car going up against a brilliant car.
That's right. Yeah. Look, I'm not fussed what people think about the synergy between Toyota and BMW. Like, it's just a brilliant car, and people have got to realise, you know, enjoy it while we can. You know, and those sort of cars, they're being built for us to enjoy. Get out on the track and enjoy them.
I'm just going to end with this. I got closer to your time than I thought I would, so I'm pretty happy.
You did?
Yeah. Thanks, mate.
Well done, mate.
Cheers.